to another PSP-led webinar series. Today, Adrian and I are going to be walking you through a prenatal yoga series. My name is Erin Tresser. I'm the reconditioning manager here at CFB Edmonton. In reconditioning, we deal with all pre- and postnatal referrals from the medical system. So anyone who is currently on MELs or a CHIT for prenatal or postnatal, or just coming off of their mat leave, usually come to see us. So we figured it was a really good topic to start with. This is going to be the first of 2 videos that Adrian and I are going to produce for prenatal yoga. I'll let Adrian introduce herself.
Hey, like Erin said, my name is Adrian. I also go by Andy here at CFB Edmonton. I'm one of the fitness and sports instructors. I am a 200-hour registered yoga teacher. I do have a little bit of specialization as well in trauma and anxiety, as well as I am a CSEP certified personal trainer with some additional training in pre and postnatal fitness. So we're looking to bring those specialties together today for our prenatal classes.
So in the Canadian Armed Forces, when a military member declares that she is pregnant, they automatically usually get a medical employment limitation or a CHIT to show that they have some restrictions. With that, however, we want to encourage all of our CAF members to continue with their physical activity journeys throughout their pregnancy into their postpartum. And so one of the items that we focus on in our reconditioning program, not only in their aerobic fitness and their strength, but we also focus on yoga and how that can benefit them throughout their pregnancy, into their labor and delivery, and then into their postpartum. So that's why we chose this topic today. So we hope you enjoy the next 30 minutes of activity, and we'll go from there. Before we move into the practical portion of today's webinar, we wanted to first review the benefits of physical activity throughout pregnancy, the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology's specific guidelines for physical activity throughout pregnancy, and some of the contraindications that should be considered prior to engaging in or continuing with physical activity. First, let's start with the benefits of physical activity throughout pregnancy. In general, prenatal physical activity should be considered a frontline therapy for reducing pregnancy complications and improving maternal physical and mental health. Generally, the more physical activity you can engage in, the more benefits you will have. That is, the greater frequency, duration, and/or volume of physical activity you can tolerate, the greater benefits you will have for your overall physical and mental health. It should be noted that physical activity has not been associated with certain things such as miscarriage, stillbirth, neonatal death, preterm birth, low birth weight, birth defects, just to name a few complications that can arise. In general, when done appropriately, physical activity has significant benefits for improving maternal health and well-being. Next, we will look at the specific guidelines surrounding physical activity throughout pregnancy and what you should be aiming to achieve each week throughout your pregnancy. In 2019, the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology released new guidelines for physical activity throughout pregnancy. In the absence of contraindications, which we will discuss next, following these guidelines is associated with fewer newborn complications and maternal health benefits such as decreased risk for preeclampsia, gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes, excessive gestational weight gain, depression, and decreased severity of depressive symptoms, just to name a few. To successfully meet these guidelines, women may need to modify their physical activity as their pregnancy progresses, and there may be periods within their pregnancy that following these guidelines may not be possible due to fatigue or discomfort. It is recommended that women be encouraged to engage in physical activity as tolerated throughout their pregnancy, and if that means that they have to come and go with physical activity, that is also acceptable. Let's examine the 6 different guidelines that were released by CSEP. The first, all women without contraindications should be physically active throughout their pregnancy. The second, pregnant women should aim to accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each week to achieve clinically meaningful health benefits. When engaging in physical activity, women should aim to accumulate the 150 minutes over a minimum of 3 days per week. However, being active every day is strongly encouraged. Women should also incorporate a variety of aerobic and resistance training activities into their daily physical activity in order to achieve greater benefits. Adding yoga and/or gentle stretching may also be beneficial for their overall physical and mental health. Pelvic floor muscle training, such as Kegels, may be performed on a daily basis to reduce the risk of urinary incontinence. Proper instruction on technique is recommended in order to obtain optimal benefits. The final guideline is that pregnant women who experience lightheadedness, nauseousness, feel unwell when they exercise flat on their back should modify their exercise position to avoid that supine position. For women not currently meeting the recommended physical activity guidelines, a progressive adjustment towards meeting those guidelines is recommended. Previously active women may continue with physical activity throughout their pregnancy, similar to what they were doing prior to becoming pregnant. These general recommendations mean that if you were active before you were pregnant, continue with these activities that you were doing. However, if you were not physically active, Canadian Armed Forces members are really encouraged to reach out to their local PSP reconditioning staff for support as they reintroduce physical activity into their daily training regime throughout their pregnancy. Despite the benefits that we've already discussed of being physically active throughout your pregnancy and the general recommendation to continue with physical activity throughout your pregnancy, there are some contraindications that we must consider as we move through our pregnancy. Women who experience contraindications to exercise are encouraged to consult with their physician prior to engaging in any physical activity. For those members of the Canadian Armed Forces, this is where the connection between the medical system and the PSP reconditioning program becomes important, as medical personnel can refer CAF members with contraindications to the reconditioning program, and reconditioning staff can program and modify exercises accordingly. When we look at contraindications, we have two different categories that we must consider. We have absolute contraindications and relative contraindications. Women who experience absolute contraindications may continue with normal activities of daily living, but should not participate in more strenuous type activities. Examples of such absolute contraindications are premature labor, placenta previa after 28 weeks gestation, preeclampsia, incompetent cervix, or uncontrolled type 1 diabetes, hypertension, or thyroid disease. Women who experience relative contraindications may be able to participate in more moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity. However, they should discuss participation in these activities with a medical professional prior to participation. Examples of relative contraindications are recurrent pregnancy loss, gestational hypertension, history of spontaneous preterm birth, malnutrition or eating disorders, and symptomatic anemia. If there is ever a question of whether or not to begin or continue with physical activity, members are encouraged to consult with their medical professional for further clarification. For more information on the CSEP physical activity guidelines throughout pregnancy, you can visit www.csep.ca. CAF members who are currently pregnant and in their prenatal phase are encouraged to seek help from their local reconditioning staff, either through direct referral to the PSP reconditioning program or through consultation with their medical professional and referral back to the PSP reconditioning program. We will now move into the practical phase of our prenatal yoga webinar.
All right, so for today's prenatal yoga class, Erin is 17 weeks pregnant, so I'm going to be leading her through this class, and then you can join in for as much as you'd like as well. We're going to start off here. If you have a mat, feel free to grab one. You definitely don't need one for practice. You just need pretty much enough space to lay down. You should be good to go. We're going to start in a nice, easy seated pose. So if that's cross-legged or another similar comfortable seated posture, that'll be excellent. And if cross-legged isn't something that's super comfortable for you, whether you're sitting on a cushion or sitting on some yoga blocks or in a chair, any of those will do just as well. So we're going to start off here just by finding a nice long spine here, almost like you have a string pulling up out of the top of your head, allowing hands to rest at the sides, maybe on the legs, in the lap, or anywhere else that they are comfortable. And I'll encourage you to either soften your gaze or close the eyes for the next few moments here. Just going to start to bring our attention to our breath. Noticing how it's making its way through the body today. Feeling how your body is resting while we're here, where it's supported. And coming into that breath a little bit deeper at your own time, we'll start to make our inhales a little bit longer, a little bit fuller. Exhale slow and smooth. Again, inhaling, keeping that nice and slow, really full breath in. Slow, easy exhale here. At your own pace, find a few more breaths just like that. And we'll start to bring a little bit of a focus as we're doing those breaths. Maybe repeating this in your mind as we make our way through the practice. I listen to what my body needs. My body knows how to prepare for this baby. My baby and I are safe, loved. Anything else that really comes to mind to bring into your practice today? We'll come back into this space a little bit more, maybe inviting some movement to the fingers and toes, giving them a little bit of a wiggle. You can draw the chin down towards the chest, gently refocusing or opening the eyes if they are closed. Make our way back up to that nice tall spine here. Fantastic. We're going to start by opening up through the sides of the body a little bit. You can bring the right hand down onto your mat or onto something else near you for a little bit of support. With an inhale, send your left fingertips to the sky. As we exhale, we're going to find a little bit of a reach up and over, creating space through the left side of the body here. And if it doesn't feel great for the shoulder with the arm fully extended, feel free to add a bend to that elbow so you can tuck an arm behind the head. And think about inhaling to create more space through the side of the body. Exhales, keep our sit bones grounded into the mat here. Nice. With that next breath in or so, we can think about opening through the arm or opening that shoulder a little bit more towards the ceiling. Taking an inhale to find your way back through center. Exhaling, you can go ahead and release that arm back down. Moving right into our second side. We'll inhale, right arm reaches. Exhale, sends us up and over to the side, creating that space through the right side of the body. Adding that bend to the arm if that feels good. Maybe relaxing through the shoulders a little bit more, letting them melt away from the ears. That supporting arm is just there for a little bit of an assist, maybe adding a gentle bend to the elbow. And again, using inhales to open up as much as is available. Chest opens towards the sky. Great stuff. Let's inhale, bring that back through center. Exhale, release it down. Take your time here. Nice. We're going to open up a little bit more through the chest, working with a little bit deeper, a little bit fuller breath. So you can bring arms out to the sides here, palms up, find an inhale, sweep overhead, fill up, maybe lifting gaze. As you exhale, find your cactus arms. Elbows draw down, shoulder blades pull back and down together. Nice. Again, inhale, we sweep up. Exhale, activating through that upper back. So strong here. A couple more. Take your time, move at your own pace. I listen to what my body needs, what pace it needs to be breathing at or moving at today. One more. Really good stuff. And just relaxing those arms back to the mat here. Beautiful. Continuing with a little bit of this opening through the chest, a little bit of activation through the back. This is similar to a cat-cow, if you were familiar. We're going to start by walking the fingertips back to either side, coming back behind us slightly. We'll maintain that nice long, tall spine, but find a little bit of openness across the front of the body here. Breathing into that space, maybe lifting the gaze slightly if it's comfortable. Just finding that gentle opening, gentle stretch. And countering this, we'll start to walk the fingertips forward. They can find their way just in front of us, maybe resting on the legs or on the mat, and allowing chin to drop to the chest, gentle rounding of the back here. Just let gravity do the work for you. Each exhale, just letting your forehead melt a little bit, shoulders melting away from ears. Gently parting the teeth if the jaw is clenched at all. Help relax the face. Finding our way back up through that nice tall spine. So some of the modifications that we made in today's practice and some of the rationale behind them, one of them would be a lot of chest openers, a lot of activation through the back. Reasoning for doing this is often in pregnancy, or most of the time I would say, the front of the body gets a lot tighter. There's a lot more going on in the front of the body in general. So the more that we can adapt to that and keep our shoulders from starting to round forward, keep our back from rounding forward, stay really strong and supported through our spine, it's going to be way better for our back health, as well as just taking some tension out of the chest that doesn't need to be there. Yeah.
As Adrian said, as pregnancy progresses, everything on the front becomes heavier, and so our back health tends to suffer. And so this is where yoga can become a really important practice in your daily physical activity, because it can keep that back health, at least preserve the back health that you have, rather than showing a huge deterioration. You can continue to maintain your back health into your postpartum, where you can then start to work on increasing your back health from your pregnancy.
Cool. Hanging out in our easy seated position for now, we're going to go through a little bit of abdominal activation, coming a little bit deeper, hitting your transverse abdominals here. If it feels good, you can keep hands in the lap, on the legs, at the sides, or maybe bringing them to the belly if that feels good. We'll find our nice tall spine once more, really proud through the chest, beautiful. As you inhale, fill up. And as you exhale, you can almost imagine hugging your baby to your spine, holding them close. So really gentle activation through the abdominals. As we inhale, release that gently. Exhale again, just giving them that nice little hug, a little bit of a squeeze. Strengthening our trunk, our pillar, holding them safe. Finding a couple more of those, just moving with your breath, whatever pace is feeling good here. Along the same lines of opening the chest and being strong through our back, those transverse abdominal contractions that we were working with help to really support the whole pillar that really is our core and any of those movements. So we can train the back individually or on its own for sure, but adding a little bit more work through the obliques or through that transverse abdominal or those deeper abdominal muscles is really going to help to support even more in the longer run.
Take your time. We're going to find our way into a 4-point position. We're going to bring arms to stack underneath of shoulders, knees to stack under hips, and just settle into a nice neutral spine. We're going to come into those same core engagements here, those hugs in towards your spine. Going to draw the crown of the head out tall, sending the tailbone back nice and long. Really good stuff here. Keeping it just gentle with the hands as they relax onto the floor, maybe adding a little bit of activity, pressing down through fingertips and thumb. And just check in with the feet, let them relax a little bit. Sometimes we want to point our toes here, but we'll let them just hang out nice and easy. Moving with that breath once more. We'll take the exhales to add that little bit of a hug, a little bit of abdominal activation. Just moving through our couple more at your own pace. Maybe coming back to your mantra, your positive affirmation as we make our way through. My baby and I are strong. My baby and I are supported. Fantastic. All right, moving through a little bit of a more familiar exercise. We'll come into a cat-cow. I'll encourage you to listen to your body and go as far into your cat-cow as feels comfortable today and adjust however you need with your pace. As we inhale, maybe we lift a little bit through the head and the chest, maybe hips. Exhaling, we can round through the spine, press down through the hands to the knees. The inhale brings us back to that neutral spine or maybe into a little bit of extension. Exhaling, we press and round. Send that breath in even a little bit deeper on your next one. One more. Absolutely no rush as we make our way through these. Beautiful. Cool. Are wrists feeling okay so far? Excellent.
So a modification for cat-cow that we wanted to touch on as well is maybe not to be going as deep into that front body opener, into that cow posture. So when you're inhaling, lifting through the head, lifting through the chest, lifting through the hips, we allow that belly to drop a little bit. This might be comfortable or might not be so comfortable. So you can certainly modify by just coming back to a neutral spine or a tabletop, maybe just finding that gentle bit of a lift through the gaze without finding that full back arch as we make our way through that movement.
Throughout my pregnancy, we use it as an example because I am not able to go into that cow posture as easily as I once was. It causes a lot of strain on my abdomen and in my lower pelvic region. So the modifications are really important. Listen to your body. Make sure you're listening to those pulls in those tight areas so that you're not overextending or going into too much range of motion in some of those exercises.
We'll find our way back to that neutral spine. Maybe sending the knees out a little bit wider. We'll take a few breaths in a child's pose. You're going to send hips back towards your heels. Extend the arms out overhead and just let the front of your body melt in towards the ground here. Coming back to those nice deep breaths. Maybe you can allow the forehead to rest. Maybe even giving it a little bit of a rock side to side, kind of massaging out through the forehead. Easing our nervous system a little bit here, giving us a little bit of a signal, pressing against something solid here that we can relax, that we're grounded. Beautiful. With your next breath in, we're going to sweep back up, finding our tabletop. We'll stack knees back under hips and move through a couple of bird dogs. We'll go through a few variations, a few options in these. keeping that nice neutral spine, that little bit of activation through the core, hugging baby in towards us. You're going to start by extending a right arm and left leg. Excellent. Toes can be lifted through that back leg, but flex them back towards your face. Or maybe they stay on the mat for today. Holding for a breath or so. And finding our way back to our tabletop, just slow and controlled. When you're ready, same thing, second side, left arm, right leg. Long neutral spine. Spread your fingertips wide. My baby and I are strong. We are powerful. Bringing that back through neutral once more. Let's do one more each side. Inhaling to lift, extend. Finding that long line from your fingertips out your heel in the back. Checking in with the breath if it's flowing smooth. Finding an exhale to release down. One more, other side. At any point while we're here, if we find ourselves starting to hold our breath at all, maybe that's a signal to adjust the movement that we're doing, maybe by lowering the toes, having a little bit less of a reach. That's perfectly fine. Again, exhale, coming back through center. And we'll go ahead and relax out of that for now. If you want to find your way up to a standing position, for the moment, we'll make our way into goddess pose. If you need to take a few extra moments to do this transition, do what you need to do. Again, there's no rush, so modify as you need. We're going to find our stance nice and wide here, whatever is comfortable. Toes turned out about 45 degrees towards the corner of your mat. And if we've lost it, we'll find that nice long spine again, growing tall through the crown of the head. Beautiful. Before we get into this one a little bit deeper here, hands can maybe catch hips, come through center, hang it wherever is most comfortable for you. And see if we can find a little bit of engagement through the pelvic floor here, finding a little bit of a lift in and up. Maybe noticing what other muscles around want to help out with that movement, if anything around the glutes, legs, hips, abdominals. Also want to get a little bit active to help there. We're going to be mindful of that pelvic floor contraction or activation as we make our way into our goddess pose today. So finding a little bit of a seat back and down, or a nice wide squat here. We'll start to slide almost like your back is coming down a wall. Knees and toes pointing in the same direction. Finding a bit of activation, pressing out with the legs here, back with the knees. Good. Just noticing how your feet are pressing into the mat, what little adjustments you might need to make. What might feel one way today is going to feel very different another time, and that is perfectly normal, perfectly okay. You can experiment with arms a little bit while we're here for a couple of breaths, maybe coming through center, finding those same cactus arms from before, up to sides. Have some fun with this one, make it your own. Maybe repeating one of those mantras one more time. Find a positive affirmation that suits you. I am nourishing my baby. Hands are elsewhere. They can find their way back to hips. Press firm through those feet. Come on back up to stand. And we'll take that back in towards each other for now. Again, just connecting with the ground a little bit, how we're balanced, how we're supported here. I'll encourage you to spread your toes out nice and wide. Feel where in your feet is strong and in contact with the mat. Notice if you can press down gently through your big toe, through the heels. Finding it soft, bend to the knees. So we'll make our way just through a couple more breaths to bring us through the rest of our day here. You can open those arms up to the side, find a big inhale, sweep overhead. Exhale, hands float through center. One more here, open up, fill up. through center, palms press, allowing that to open up through the chest, keeping it proud here, staying as you are, or maybe finding one more big breath in, fill up. Big sigh out the mouth, let it go. Those always feel so good. Let's take a moment here to come back to that easy seated position that we started in. And take your time, no rush as we do so. And we'll find a few more of those deep breaths in case we lost that at all as we move the rest of the way through the practice. So settle in however you need, wherever you need to be today. Allow the gaze to soften once more, or eyes to close. Just allow your breath to flow smoothly. If we've been really extending it, maybe we just let it come back to its natural rhythm. My baby and I are a team. I listen to my body and what it needs. And my baby knows what it needs from me. Let that settle in for a moment. And then once more, we'll slowly draw chin down towards the chest. Coming back to our surroundings, maybe fluttering the eyes open. Taking in a little bit more of the room around us as we can lift that gaze back up. And I hope that you can bring a little bit more of this relaxed sensation, some of those really positive affirmations, or some new kind of activations and movements with you into the rest of your day. How you feeling?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so throughout the practice today, we used quite a few different mantras. Right? I brought a few different positive affirmations to mind. These were some that we came up with together and brainstormed with some of our coworkers here, but really use whatever works for you. What might sound great and really empowering or really calming for one person is going to be totally different for somebody else. And so if you had something else entirely in mind, use it. Go with what's best, but allow something really positive with that to kind of fill you up and be that constant reminder to come back to throughout the practice. Now, this is going to be really helpful in your yoga practices to train, but then transitioning just into your normal life as well, finding that little bit of positivity, or even while you're getting closer to your stages of labor, if you're experiencing any anxiety or even just going through a less comfortable time, they're going to be really helpful to come back to as well.
Some additional considerations to keep in mind in a prenatal yoga class would be avoiding pointing your toes just to try and limit the possibility of foot cramps, and avoiding Valsalva maneuvers or holding your breath. Although we're going through quite a few different mindful activation movements, building body awareness, and working on balance and coordination, we're going to avoid some of those longer, deep stretch holds just because of the extra relaxant in the body at the time.
When looking for a prenatal yoga class or a yoga class that's designed for pregnancy, it is best if you can find one that is specifically prenatal focused. They will be able to provide more modifications than a normal yoga class. And just remember, listen to your body. Every day will be different and every week will be different as you progress through your pregnancy. So it's important to